Hello, welcome back to the show. I am happy to introduce you to Robert Earl White. So most people know Robert best from his documentary, A UFO Crashed in My Backyard. However, you have a very colorful life and you've become quite enlightened on your journey through this lifetime. And I would love for you to share some of your personal journey with our viewers. And also later, I want to kind of maybe touch on how you discovered that you can heal people. Okay, so Robert.
Well, thank you, Kelly, so much for having me here. Yes, I have my documentary, The Lower Aloways Creek. I've done a lot of interviews that are getting some attention now with Laura Eisenhower, Elena Denon, and a few other great people I know in the disclosure community. And yes, I've had a very fascinating life, and I come from a very complex and multi-layered background, I guess one could say. And for me, really, it all started, that point of my life when I realized that all possibilities are optional, anything can exist, was in 1991 when I was about 4 years old. My family had a UFO crash behind my house. Afterwards, of course, my mother, my aunt next door saw it. They called 911. Following was a mass cover-up by the Air Force, Men in Black, and the Coast Guard. And my mother was hypnotized, went through regression therapy as well. And it turns out she was an abductee in contact, and these beings were doing experiments and communicating with her, all different kinds of beings, not just one species. And, at a very young age after this UFO crash, which was well documented for all of you that aren't familiar with it, it was on the news, newspapers, the MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, many other people as well, a couple TV shows. It got a lot of attention, but my mother, chose to remain silent and remain anonymous through most of it. With that being said, it really opened up a door being just about 4 years old at that age of comprehension of what reality is and starting to understand the things around you. It really threw a wrench into the works of my psychology and the way I would progress through my life and how I would go about things with having a more open-minded, approach to it. With that being said, single mother, no father around, also during the time of the UFO crash. And this went on for a while. I was the only child, and originally we grew up in the country. I didn't have any human friends to play with. I had a pet deer, and I had a pet Doberman that kept me company. And anyone that would be passing my house out in the country, it was common to see a little redheaded boy running around in the yard with a decent sized buck. It was a buck. It was a boy deer. It didn't have horns at the time, but eventually it did. And running around, we had a willow tree, which I love weeping willows. We had a willow tree, and the deer and we would play tag, and the deer and we had this bond. He was my best friend, and I would chase him and he would run from me, and I would slap him on the butt real hard. And when I would do that, he would stop, turn around, and he would chase me. I remember my mom telling me stories where he was really coming after me, and I would try to run up the slide. I think she said one time I peed my pants because he bucked me real good as I was trying to run up the ladder. But we would do this all day long, and it was a game. We would also play peekaboo around this giant willow tree, which had, a 4-foot base. It was massive. Wow. And Bucky, my deer, we loved to play peekaboo, and we would just do it all day long, go around the tree. Oh, there you are. And he would go around it. It was fun. We had a little kiddie pool. It would go swimming in. My mother would hang up laundry. He would come along and take it all down. He would bucked
Right.
all the laundry off the line. My
Yeah.
mother, oh, you dear, used to come and slept inside with us. It would eat right off the kitchen table because it was the same height. That became a problem. But an impeccable bond. And with that being said, that was the first time I felt heartbreak. Someone called and reported us having a deer, and just about at 5 years old, I came home from school and my best friend was just gone. And someone called and reported my best friend, and the government came and took my best friend and said they were putting him on a game reserve or something like that. But I learned at that age, never trust the government, and they're nothing but scumbags. As far as I was concerned, at 5 years old, I just lost my best friend. And that was the exact moment where I hated my government, and that stuck with me for the rest of my life. And till this day, I'm not a fan of them. They took something I love away from me. No human being could have understood. I had a speech problem. I was slow to speak, although extremely fast to walk, and a couple incredible experiences in there. Ironically, my very
You're very articulate.
yeah, uh, yes, I struggle with speech for years, which that will come later on in the story. But I had a lot of struggles. I was slightly dyslexic. I also in school when I was a child, things on the board, everything was mixed up and backwards. I especially in mathematics, like numbers, I just couldn't process what I was looking at. It just seemed all compiled together. I struggled with a lot of things, but eventually throughout the years, I worked really hard, and everything I struggled with, I ended up becoming a master on. And that took a lot of time and work. But at that moment, that deer was, my best friend, and it
Yeah.
was one being that understood me and saw me for what I was. And I had an amazing connection. And that was the first time I ever felt lost in my life. And it stuck with me for a very long time, no doubt about it. So moving on, single mother. My mother was married a few times. My mother and I, we wouldn't really talk too much about the UFO crash, a lot of ridicule, rejection, things like that. So for the most part, we kept it to ourselves. If we were at a party or something like that, we might share it with people we trust, but then even again, they would ridicule, laugh us. So for the most part, we would really keep it close to our chest and only share it because we did not have evidence at the time of this happening. With that being said, I went on through my life, single mom, going to school. My mom moved a lot. So every few years, I would be in a different school. This allowed me to constantly redefine myself. And I actually started to like it because at a young age, I realized how valuable having a fresh start can actually be. And each school experience, I would learn new things. And by time I was in the 10th different school, I had the system down, which came in handy when it came to making friends and having peers and knowing what not to do and knowing what to do in order to climb the social, brutal child pecking order.
Yeah.
Children are vicious,
They really
and nothing is worse. They really are.
Yeah.
And I got to master it at a young age. With that being said, my fifth grade year, I won my school's math bee. Numbers was one of those things I struggled with. Turns out I won the school's math bee. I was the smartest kid in mathematics in fifth grade.
imagine
That same year, because we were about to go into sixth grade. And and a little side note, my mother, struggled with alcoholism a tidbit, which a lot of that is associated to the UFO crash and extraterrestrial phenomena, but I don't want to get too much into that aspect of the story, just telling you how it is. I had a lot of different stepdads. My mother was, struggling with that, which things were good when they were good, but she got a little too buzzed, things were tough. I was abused, but a single mom don't have a lot of options, and she needs to make her kid tough. And I wasn't a little kid. I was very large. I'm 6'8" now, so in like fifth and sixth grade, I was taller than my mom. So, sometimes she would have to use her knuckles and get after it, and that's just how she was. She had to be the father and the mother. So it wasn't that typical motherly role. She was a tough cookie, and she didn't take no crap, and she would be quick to put me in the place otherwise. With that being said, she was always aware of, spiritual world and higher accounts and extraterrestrials, and she kept me well grounded and taught me a lot of very valuable lessons. But so going to fifth grade, I won the math school bee. That same year we had an exam. It was state testing. And, I just won this math bee, and trust me, I knew I was the smartest kid. After I won that math bee, I had a little, oh yeah, look at me. I was proud, and I worked really hard at it. But we had this state testing, and we had this state testing on mathematics. And the teacher laid down the thing in front of us, and I started going through. I knew every single answer. I did the whole entire test. I knew all of them, piece of cake. The very last question, I had no idea what it was. Our teacher never went over this information or anything like that. And I'll get to what it was afterwards. But it upset me so bad. And I did something really stupid. So I was so upset because I knew my teacher never mentioned this math problem, and I've never seen it in anything, and I knew everything there was about mathematics. So I was so hurt and frustrated, and this will kind of give you, my soul, how rebellious I am. I went back, and all of my right answers, I deliberately changed them to wrong answers.
Wow.
And the last answer, I just took a random guess. And when I don't know, they always said, when in doubt, see yourself out. So that was just a little test taking thing. When I didn't know something, I always put C. When in doubt, see your way out. So that was it. But I deliberately went through, erased each one, and on purpose made each question wrong. See, when most kids take a test, whether they know it or not, they're bound to get a couple right, boosting that score. Well, it turns out that, because I was absolutely right on all those questions, and I handed it in, I had the worst score of the entire school. My family was called in. They wanted to punish me for what I did. Turns out that one question that was basically a senior university mathematic question that they put on there just to torment and to make children feel bad about themselves for no reason, just to see if they have any unique minds out there. They put that question on there expecting everyone to get it wrong. And that was the only answer I got right, because I guessed C, and the answer was C, but every other answer was wrong. And I told them exactly how I felt. Why would you put it on? Did you want to see me fail? Do you want to see children that work so hard at learning mathematics feel like they're worthless and they don't know everything after they spent 3 months studying their butts off to do good on this test, to help the state look good, to help the school? But the teachers were furious because I was the only person to get the lowest score. It was one of the lowest scores that the state of New Jersey has ever gotten, because even if kids are guessing, they can't get that many wrong. It was intelligently done wrong. And because of that, they punished me. That same year I won the math bee, the following year in middle school, they put me in a special education math program.
Well, I just want to
Yep.
add to this that I agree with your whole premise on that, right? Because they really do things like that to see who the more intelligent children are. But you're right. It makes all of those other children feel really less than. And for you to have the insight
I was pissed.
at that age to understand that, to comprehend that, and what their purpose of all of that was and how it was going to affect all of those children. I just want to point out to the viewers that A, that means that you are very empathetic. So you are a natural empath. And B, you probably are a star child, what I would call a star child or a star seed, which are, us light workers who are here consciously aware of our journey as we go through it to help people to wake up. I just feel like your insight,
and that's why I shared it,
is huge. Your insight into that is really huge, to be a young child and really see that for what it is, So congratulations to you.
and that's exactly why. Yes, and that's why I shared it. It seemed random, but it also tells a lot about my character. I'm not afraid to sabotage everything
Right.
in order to prove a point.
Exactly.
And that mentality has stuck with me. And as you hear about later parts of my life and how I progressed, so moving on from that, and you're exactly right. And for being in 5th grade, that was a young age to kind of come to terms, but obviously I wasn't that far behind because I won the math bee. It kind of goes to show that intelligence takes the higher road, even when 99% of everyone else does this. Intelligence is the one that questions it and then does something morally to stand up for it. And
I'm sorry.
am I good?
Need to mute you.
Oh, it's all good. You want me to shut up?
I was actually trying to mute myself because I need to cough and I didn't want to interrupt you. I'm so sorry. Say that again.
It's okay. Cough, get it out. So with that being said, it was a lot to go through, and I was well aware at that young age. And so the following year they put me in a special mathematics, and it just so happened, check this out, just so happens my math teacher was Bruce Willis's teacher and acting coach.
What?
And his name was Mr. Mason. And this guy knew my record. He knew my record, and he was pissed that I was in his class. Not at me, at the school for putting me in this. It was mentally challenged mathematics. And he's like, this guy just won the school's math bee. Yeah. And he was a great man. And I want to talk about Mr. Mason because this is where Bruce Willis and we came from the same town, same area. And we had the same guy behind us. And the way Bruce Willis took it and the way I took it was a little different. But in the end, it's the same result. And Bruce Willis is no fool. I know who was, the guy lighting the flame under him long before he was famous. I know that man's backstory. I know the hood, the ghetto, the town he came out of. I know Bruce Willis, and I just want everyone to know that that guy has a backstory that is very similar to mine. So with that being said, that's who my math teacher was. And he said, hey, Rob, after school or any empty periods, I want you to come out and we can learn real mathematics. And I would go after school and Mr. Mason would sit there and teach me what the school didn't want me knowing.
Wow.
Not to mention that in second grade, I was one of the first clinical trials for the medication Ritalin. As I said, I saw things a little different, and their excuse was I was drumming. I was drumming using my pencils like drums. Therefore, I had an issue and a problem. Not to mention that I'm Native American. My ancestors have been banging and drumming for centuries, and I was a professional musician, which I will get into, and they want to label it as a disability. It just goes, and that pill, that medication, Ritalin, it's poison, it's a toxin. It completely cut me off from reality. Did I get all straight A's? Yes. Was I a complete robot cut off from consciousness? Yes. And that's exactly why they're prescribing it. I want the world to know that. Don't fall for it. Take your children off that crap and show them love and give them a hobby and keep their hands busy.
That's
That's
right.
it. They're smarter than the dumb humans around them. They have hyperactive minds. You know when that comes into handy? In combat, when you have five guys coming at you at once and you have a hyperactive mind so you can do five things at once. No, they want to dumb you down so you can be stupid like the rest of the world around you. Don't fall for it. Having a hyperactive mind, when learn how to control it and contain it, will make you win a math bee. It will make you a genius when you learn to concentrate it, but they rather not take the time and patience to teach you that and just shove a pill down your throat and cut you off from consciousness. That's their plan. So
Yep.
they tried. Luckily, sixth grade, the military put out a thing, and I was being groomed to go into the military. My stepdad at the time was an ex-Marine, and I had all intentions on going in the Air Force. That's all I ever wanted to do since I was a kid. All I wanted was to be in the Air Force. And so my mother took me off the Ritalin in sixth grade, which was the same time Mr. Mason came aboard, because the military said, if you're taking Ritalin past this age, you will not be allowed into the military. So my family said, oh, no, you're not getting out of it. You know, they clocked it, took it off. They said, oh, no. And plus my mom said it tore her apart seeing me the way I was. It was heartbreaking. All the life I used to have went away. I would come home, do my homework, watch the 6 o'clock news, and be in bed by 7 o'clock. And we're talking about like 13, 14 years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that time period, 10, 9 years old. All my friends would be out playing football. And here I was zoned out like a zombie doing homework. She hated it. So, needless to say, Mr. Mason, he really coached me, you know, and he really gave me valuable insights. And although the school did not want to give me an education on mathematics, he went out of his way to be a good man. And he's always stuck with me. In later years, he actually ended up being my soccer coach and involved. And he was definitely getting me into a lot of the sports and stuff. My next door neighbor was good friends with him, and he looked after me. But those years was tough. My high school years, in eighth grade was when I first started getting into music. I was in a metal band in eighth grade, and we were doing like heavy metal covers. I was a screamer, and I started getting into music and all that. I was also really into skateboarding and riding dirt bikes and ATV. If it was dangerous and I could break a couple things, which I never did, it was all for me. And that's what I was about. I was a wild guy, country folk, you know, and that was my thing. And then high school came around. I went to a vocational school and I went for the ROTC, the Junior Air Force program. And I also took AutoCAD, which is like designing cars and stuff like that, which I didn't want to take AutoCAD. It was suggested to me. I didn't really care about designing things, but looking back, it's kind of ironic. You know, that there's a reason for everything. But yeah, I did that. I did that for about a year and a half, 2 years. I can't quite remember. And then I went back to my original high school for some reason. I don't know why. ended up going back to my original high school. And right around that time period, there was a lot of stuff going on. My mother was going through another divorce. Her and I, we just moved along with our elderly grandmother that wasn't doing that good. I was about 15 years old, 15, 16 years old, and I had to take care of my elderly grandmother. My mother was a bartender at the time. She would work from 2 to 3 until 2, 3 in the morning. And so I would come home from school and I would have to take care of my grandmother, help her go to the bathroom, wash her, things that generally a 15, 16-year-old boy don't have to do. I had to. And it was just me and my mom. The only day my mom had off was a Tuesday. And there was a local church and they had a youth group that took place on Tuesdays, my day off, I guess you could say. And I said, I want to go there. I was desperate to have some sort of social interaction. And I would go there. And long story short, eventually I became a pastor. I was in school. I started a Christian Bible study. After school, I was the leader of it through a program called the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And I was doing that, and I love spreading positivity and light and reading the good book and helping kids with their problems. I just loved it, even at 16, 17 years old. And the school came down on me, and lawyers were involved, and the FFA lawyers talked to my mother, and they had to remove me out of the school because of the persecution I was getting for just trying to help my peers and spreading. And trust me, I didn't read the Bible like a pastor. I didn't. I chose the light and the love that can be found in that book, and I capitalize on it to help these kids that came from homes like I did, and I was really just trying to help people. And the principal came after me. Luckily, my math teacher, a different math teacher, and I had people like Mr. Mason still involved with the school board. They got involved, and my one math teacher, Mr. Lauer, he stormed into the principal's office and he told me to stop speaking. He forced me out of the room. He slammed the door and he laid in because the principal was trying to set me up, and he was furious. He saw what the principal was doing, and they got into it. And my family had to remove me out of school. That was towards the end of, I believe, my 10th grade. So my 11th and 12th grade year, I spent every day at the church with my youth pastor, helping him and setting up. So I was a pastor long before anyone should be a pastor. And then my 12th grade year, I started working. I worked at a gas station on the New Jersey Turnpike because here in New Jersey, we pump gas for people. I know it's
Right.
something magical. It's a humbling job. And especially dealing with New Yorkers and people from DC and Baltimore, we're dealing with some of the biggest a-holes in the country. The Northeast, we're filled with them. And so it was a character building job, and I would do that. When I would get done work, I would go to church and do that. So I was working at a gas station and doing that. And once I actually got my high school diploma, physical high school diploma. I walked in everything, but I did a night program. So I was working and I would do that. And I finished 2 grades in 3 months. I was a genius. It was so easy. I didn't even have to try. I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, man, I guess people that go to night school are another level. For me, I mean, winning the math bee, having A's and stuff, I blasted through it. You know what I mean? So I did that. And as soon as I got my high school diploma, my youth pastor and all that, was highly involved with church. He sent me to this program called Master's Commission, which is Bible college, but it's known as like the boot camp of Bible colleges. It's one of the most intense, hands-on college. It's not like Bible college where you go to your classes, you read your book, and you do a little prayer and all that. No, Not only were we doing all of that, we had a full out thing. We were cutting people's grasses, doing, just always serving
Right. Service
constantly,
to
learning
others.
leadership, learning, yeah, learning leadership by helping others. You
Yep.
want to be a leader, you got to do the work and lead from the background. That was the number one value I learned. You want to be a leader, do it from all the way in the back, and you will become superior. No one may notice that, but if you really want to run things, you do it from the background. And that was one of the things I learned. And I did that. And here comes my rebellion again. Here comes that rebellion. So I did this. It was a 1 year program. And we were coming up to the final week before graduation. I passed all my classes. I've done all this, but there was a lot of issues going on, and there was a lot of things, and I kind of got special treatment in my class because I was coming from a different situation. The director of the program, this college program, he knew my youth pastor. My youth pastor filled him in like, this isn't your average kid that don't know what he wants to do, or he's struggling with his spirituality. Like this guy has already suffered, at the cross, so to say, from his experiences. And he warned them. And my best friend, he wasn't in the program, but he used to be, and he was eventually in my band and all that. His father-in-law was the pastor of the church and all this. So I was with him, and a lot of the kids would always kind of get butt hurt. And why is he getting to do all these things and do that? Because they didn't understand my background. And when we would have like meetings and stuff, and they were talking about their struggles and their temptations, like for example, with pornography, I didn't struggle with that. And then all the guys, just guys, it would only be guys, they're all talking about their porn problems. And then they would get angry at me because I didn't have an issue with it. And I'm like, what the heck? And there's a lot of issues. So just to prove a point, at the end of this whole program, it was the last week. Up to that point, we had classes every day. I had tons of homework. I had to memorize a chapter of Bible verses each week. All right, memorize the entire chapter. I really, really struggled with it. It was pathetic how hard I had to work to do that. It was really hard. I have a hard time with song lyrics as well, believe it or not, even though I'll get to that later. But with that being said, the last week was just a fun week. Nothing going on, none of that. The very last week before graduation, it was a down week. You just got to wait to get that piece of paper, that diploma. I just left.
Oh my
I said,
God.
I don't need your verification for something I already know I'm destined to
Right.
do. And needless to say, after that, I started a metal band, a Christian metal band. We got signed, toured around the country. I was still a pastor at that church. That same church ordained our band as missionaries. They funded us as missionaries because we were going all around the country, 5 to 6 sweaty dudes in a truck going around. And I was really, I didn't deliver it like preachers on TV. I was going after those single parent kids who come from alcoholic backgrounds and they've been abused and they feel alone. And I would just tell them, hey, you're not alone. I just spread in love and light. Our band took off, and this was before what I'm doing now. Even though it was under the disguise of Christianity, it wasn't. It wasn't Christianity. It was me the entire time. And it's always been me, even before I found Christianity. And with that being said, we did that for a while. And then unfortunately, all within a few months, the band ended. And then I started really tapping in deeper. I had my extraterrestrial experience in 2012 while I was still a pastor. Essentially, the church ended calling me a demon. And they, not the church where my band was from, not the church that I went to Bible with. I'm still welcome. I could go there today. The original church that I went to when I was taking care of my grandmother, and the youth pastor that told me to be the next youth pastor. He wanted me to be the youth pastor of the church. Well, the higher ups weren't too fond of the youth pastor. The youth pastor was the son of the main pastor. And the main pastor didn't really like the son's idea of having me as the next pastor. I was in a metal band screaming about Jesus and stuff. I was so evil. Whatever. But with that being said, it kind of went down. I would speak. I have a spiritual private language I pray in, or meditate in, I rather say. And it was at this moment where they were saying, they were essentially thinking it was demonic, essentially, even though this was a Pentecostal church and all of them would be doing the BS tongues, absolute nonsense. I was speaking an actual tongue, an actual light language. And so they called me in this big fancy thing. And I actually, at the time, I didn't know it was coming. A week before that, I asked them, I wanted to get more involved because I was about to become the youth pastor, and I wanted to get on the financial board and help, with the overall, and sit on meetings so I could be aware of, I wasn't just a no one in the church. I was well known. I've done a lot of things. My ex at the time literally lived with the pastor. So, it was a lot. We were all one family. And then I get to this room and I thought they were going to say, congratulations, you're welcomed into the church. And it was a sabotage. They had 6 dudes sitting there in a long square table in a Bible study room. And they had me sit in the middle with all these guys around me. And they're all just coming after me after things I've never heard them bring up. And they weren't true at all. Like, where is this coming from? And honestly, I don't really accept the idea of angels or demons or demonic activity or anything. I believe these are just terminologies of things we don't understand. I do believe there are negative energies and positive energies, and that we just use these simplified terms as angel or demon to describe good paranormal, bad paranormal, that kind of situation. But if there was ever a time that I thought I was surrounded by what people describe as demons, which once again, I don't use that terminology, it was those men around that table. And at one point they said, they were questioning me about my lights, and I quoted the Bible. I said, it said in the Bible, that men will have visions and dreams, which it does. It says it in there. And they're like, there's nowhere in the Bible that it says that. And there was a King James Bible that was sitting, because it was a Bible study room. It was sitting in the middle of the table. And this is what set them. This was to them. This was their proof that I was a demon. All right. And this is exactly why I don't believe in demons, because the people that go around saying angels and demons, they don't comprehend it anyway. And this is proof. So the Bible's sitting there and that's not in the Bible. And I just grabbed the Bible. Trust me, I still don't know how I did it. It was like the luckiest moment of my life. I flipped it, and it just so happens the page it was on, it was right there. They all sat back like that. They all pointed and started screaming demon. At that point, I was so emotionally brokenhearted. I was absolutely devastated. I stood up. I cursed them out in my light language, I guess is a way you could say it. I was like, all right, you want to see a demon? Oh, I'm going to give you a good show before I go. And there was nothing I could say with human words.
No.
The hurt and pain. And I don't speak like this light language, like during worship time, I would be doing privately. Like, it's my prayer language. I wasn't going around having conversations with it. It was my meditative private language. It's in between me and whatever is out there. All right.
Right.
And that's it. And everyone, it's your personal language. It shouldn't matter, especially in a church, Pentecostal church, where they're speaking gibberish and then having
Right.
more BS by a translation, making it authentic. No, it's not. I've spoke authentic tongues. It's not. It's BS. But with that being said, it was just mind blowing that these men that I idolized and looked up to, these are the men that brought me to Christ and encouraged me to go to
Right.
Bible college, the guy that gave me my first Bible that I took to college, he was sitting there. And these men were just attacking me. And it was the first time in my life where I was actually thinking I was understanding the word of God finally. Like finally, I'm understanding Christ consciousness. I get it. Everything is connected. He was right, and it was beyond their head. And I just kind of told them off. I went out the room, and that was in New Jersey. At the time, I lived in Delaware. I was driving back, and all in the same night, this leads to the next moment. Not to mention that this took place shortly after I saw the light being, which when I was a pastor, I never talked about my extraterrestrial experience. I left it alone. I knew better to talk about aliens and UFOs, and I never understood why I couldn't talk about it, because the book Christians were forcing me to read was filled with extraterrestrials and UFOs. So it was a moral dilemma I've had since the beginning of Christianity. Like, everyone wants to talk about aliens and UFOs, but no one wants to talk about aliens and UFOs. Christians are wonderful people. God bless their souls. I love them so much. Moving forward. So I was home. I was crying.
Yes.
My eyes out. I was devastated. I dedicated my life. I went to Bible college. My band, was based, and my band just ended. My band ended. My guitar player had a baby. And 2 days after having this baby, we went on tour for a month and a half. He couldn't do it. And I wouldn't expect anyone to be able to do that. And so it ended. So with that in mind, I just lost my band who was signed. It was my livelihood, my job, my passion, my missionary. So I wanted to be a youth pastor. And now that I actually had the time to do what I was already certified to do and already done and have been doing, that's when I got involved, and that's when they spewed me out, even against the current youth pastor who had my best interest, telling them, let this guy be pastor, spewed me out nonetheless. So I was devastated. And I was driving home, and I remember I was crossing the Delaware Bridge, this huge bridge, suspension bridge, two huge columns. It's a big bridge, a smaller size of like the Golden Gate, not that big, but it kind of looks like that, but green. I was going over, and I was just asking the universe for a sign. I'm like, what do I do now? Like, I've just been spewed out of religion. I don't have my band, and I've dedicated my life to helping others. What do I do now? And I am not kidding. As I was saying that, a Hummer pulled in front of me. And this is something I haven't shared before, but I'm going to share some of it because it's really valuable to who I am as a person and why I am. So this Hummer pulls in front of me. And on the back of the Hummer, I see that symbol,
Right.
compass, the G in
The
front of it.
Masonic symbol.
I had no idea. At the time, I didn't know that. I had no idea what it was, but I was just asking whatever's up there for a sign. I've just been spewed out. I don't care what they think. I want to help humans. I want to be a good person. I want to spread love and light. And, I was crying, and this Hummer pulled in front of me on this bridge. And I was still about 15 miles away from my home in Delaware in a small apartment complex. And this is a major bridge. So it's the main highway. And there's a lot of exits and things like that, and side roads to get to, our direction of where we were going. So I'm driving, and one thing I learned in Bible college is when you really want to understand your signs, be specific in what you're asking, and you can narrow down if this is actually something the universe wants you to pursue versus a coincidence, which there's no such thing to begin with. But for those that are skeptical, you can get very, very specific, and it will answer specifically. That's important. It's intent, I believe you call it in the metaphysical world, set your intentions correctly. So I see this square and compass with this letter G in front of it, which basically that there, I had no idea what it was. I think up to that point, I didn't realize it, but the only mention of it was in the movie National Treasure, but it wasn't nothing fancy. I just thought it was an old club or something like that. At that time, I had no idea. So we're driving down the bridge, and I'm like, all right, if this is really a sign, have this truck take my exit, and we'll go from there. Sure enough, it's in front of me. It goes in my exit. So I just keep following. It's headed my direction home. We come off the exit. There's a road there. All right. A road right there. And there's about 5 lights. And after the second light to the left, which was kind of out of the way, inconvenient because there was a light there, but there was a convenience store. But it was the only one in that area. And we're driving through 2 lights. And I'm saying, all right, universe, if this is really a sign, I want that, Hummer to go to this. They're called Wawas. All right. It was a convenience store, Wawa. I said, let them pull in there. And then if that happens, I will get out, muster up the courage to ask what that symbol means. And so we go to the first light, nothing, we go to the second light. And then right before the third light, there's the convenience store and all that. And sure enough, I see that light left turn blinker turn on, and I knew it was going to turn in there. I said, "Holy cow! Like this is a sign. It's like I'm manifesting what this thing is going to happen next." I'm like, "All right." So I'm like, "Oh man!" I started getting nervous because it's a big Hummer, and I was poor, so my poor mind is someone in a Hummer is rich. This does this person have a gun on them, or I don't know. I knew nothing, but I pulled in right next to him. I got out of my car and I went up to the window, and the guy, he had a little shock and all, like, whoa. And I told him the same thing I told you. And ironically, he asked me for 4 quarters because he needed to use a payphone. Which just think about this, and this is like 2012, by the way. Very strange, driving a Hummer and you need to use a payphone and you're asking for 4 quarters from a random guy that went up to your window. But I told him what happened, and he gave me a card to get in contact, and that's what I did. And for the first time in my life, I finally had some validation. Once I got in touch with a lodge and I reached out, for once I was finally validated. For once I was talking with amazing brothers that completely understood, and there was no BS coming out of them. Unlike everything else, and a group of guys that wanted to do charity and wanted to do good things and help the world. And I finally had my place in something. And that's all I'm going to get into with that. But that was kind of my walk into that. And it's kind of a part of my spiritual journey. And at the core of everything I am, that's a big part of it. It's not something I publicly talk about, and I don't really care to talk about it because it doesn't define me. But it is an essential part of why I just didn't give up, and I kept going, and I did continue to go on and do greater things. You got a question?
Yeah. May I ask you then, do you mind? And if you don't want to answer, you don't have to. But so does that mean that you are a Mason? And the reason that I asked that is because a lot of people within the spiritual community are actually very fearful of the Masons and the, Illuminati and that kind of thing, because I'm sure a lot of the secret esoteric knowledges that I teach have been hidden away or hijacked
protected.
lack of a
protected and protected
yes.
protected from being hijacked.
It was always meant to be a protection, but there are a lot within our community that now feel that the Freemasons are the Illuminati, that they are the ones that actually were infiltrated and that knowledge was hijacked, right? So
Yeah,
if you
the
would care
same people that say all extraterrestrials are demons, you
right,
know, same kind
right,
of thing.
or that all reptilians are bad, or you know, like, and that I'm so glad you brought that up, because many of us have family ties to Masons. You know, I have family members that are Masons or that had been Masons before they passed away. Numerous people have, and they're always sort of vilified, you know, and I want people to understand that there are good Masons. I mean, the whole concept of Masonry was the foundation of it is a goodness.
To be good. Yeah,
yes.
It's all of it. They're all good.
Right. So,
and the big misconception is Illuminati, and Illuminati is not Freemasons. When I see someone say Illuminati Freemasons, the second that comes out of their mouth, I know they have no idea what they're talking about, because even George Washington in his diaries, if you read history, was
right,
warning us about the Illuminati that was also founded in 1776.
That's right. And
yes.
he was a Mason.
And
yes.
Yes.
Right. So
he was well aware of the antics.
I didn't know we were going to end up on this topic, but I'm really thankful that we did, because that is a really huge component for me. We have so much division, whether it's spiritual stuff, ufology, race, genders, whatever. We have so much division. And I really want people to understand that people who are Freemasons all have good intentions. They are light workers, just like I am. Like they have the same common
literally
goal. Yeah.
May the brother receive the light. That is one of our incantations. You know, it's one of the things we say. May when you are first rose to the third degree, which I can talk about briefly, you know, may the brother receive the light. What like it's light, not darkness. That's what it is. But it's like, for example, the Vatican. All right, let's talk about the real demons in this world, the real monsters, and stop pinning us for it. Exactly. Let's talk about the ones that tried to destroy history. Why my ancestors put their life on the line to preserve it so you would have it in your modern day imagery. Right. You know, it wouldn't exist if it wasn't for my ancestors.
Right. That's right. Because the more I learn, the more I research, and the more I meet people and discuss these issues, the more I realize that I think that is another one of those misinformation or disinformation, however you would say that, to confuse people about who is the good, right? Where is the good? Like it makes people so confused, you know. Who do we trust? Who can we turn to? You know, who should we?
That's why
it makes their discernment wonky, right?
Absolutely. And for people that have watched these silly videos about Freemasons and like randos on the side of the street asking them stupid questions to begin with, just like how I said I respond when I hear something come out of someone's mouth by their question, I know the amount of knowledge they have about like the actual knowledge of Freemasonry versus the made up conspiracy. And that's why most Masons in public interviews and stuff, they just play along at it and laugh at you because of your lack of complete understanding. It's so bogus and wild when people tell us what we're doing and our intentions, our plans, and we're like, it's wild. It's almost an honor that people would think that about us. It kind of goes to our character of how we're really good at just keeping our mouth shut, and instead of talking a big talk, put what you know in what you create and what you build. anyone can talk a big game. Keep your mouth shut, and instead of talking a game, build it.
Agreed. But also, would you agree that there are Masons who have fallen into that bloodlust of power and money and such, that are sort of in that more of the dark things, just like,
Well, here's the beautiful part.
you have
Yeah.
people swayed, right, is what I'm saying. Just like any other group of people.
Any other group. Absolutely. But there's one key difference. Of course, you know, we are men. We are but men in a group. All right. And of course, every now and then, people stray off path. One of the big difference, the thing people don't understand about Freemasonry is the accountability that is involved. And yeah, you may be able to go a little bit off the path and do whatever you want, but your brothers are going to mess you up until you get on the path.
Yeah.
And so there is a level of accountability. Now, do certain people make mistakes? We all do, absolutely.
Right.
But that is one of the fail safes embedded within Freemasonry, is brotherly love and accountability. And
Right.
they are really strict with the accountability.
Right. And I can actually vouch
Because, for
for
example,
that for you, for anyone who may be doubting what you say, or because I know there's a lot of people that really think very negatively against the Freemasons. But I know for a fact, like, my grandfather was a Mason, and my father was the oldest, and they wanted him involved in it as well. And my father had his own reasons for being rebellious and didn't want in the group. So he became a belligerent public drunk. And then they didn't want anything to do with him anymore, because you're a belligerent public drunk, right? You don't fit the criteria now. You don't hold the same honor and respect and dignity that we insist upon from people who are our members. So yeah, he did the right thing in just becoming a public menace.
and exactly, does that sound like the Illuminati who promotes drinking, drugs, and all this, and music videos and the industry? No, it sounds nothing like that. And I think overall, it's just it goes back to the angel and demon. It's human words that are trying to explain things that are a lot more complex than that. And I think people just clump in elites, Illuminati, Freemasons, anyone that gathers together, it must be for something negative. No one ever thinks maybe people are gathering in secret to protect certain things that the real bad guys want to destroy and make sure that you will never remember who you are. They're protectors of history. And we have things hidden, and they're going to remain hidden.
Yeah. And I agree with all of what you said. However, I kind of have a little bit of a different take on it from their concept of the opinion of why they should keep the secrets. And yes, I agree that the secrets should be protected. And I just want to remind the audience too that this goes all the way back to the Knights Templar, the Cathars, right? I mean, like, this knowledge has been protected for a long, long time by these groups of people who kept this knowledge alive, kept it from being destroyed and buried. And I just want to also remind everyone that the Knights Templar were murdered on the 13th by the Catholic Church, right? By the Romans to shut this knowledge up, right? And so 13, there it is, right?
13.
Yeah. So
we don't forget.
This is very passionate to me as well. Very dear to my heart. So I just want to remind people that yes, there is a reason for this knowledge to be protected and keeping it like secret, right? But I also feel like this is that time when we need to be sharing more of that knowledge with the masses, with the people who have the eyes to see, the ears to listen, the passion and the thirst for the knowledge to learn and grow. because we, at this time now, we are truly faced with this very heavy duality war that's going on, spiritual war, if you will, where the light needs to shine and people need to understand their true power now. They really need to understand that they're not less than, right? So that's my only one small problem with keeping the secrets at this time, right?
And that's the thing. The secrets actually aren't as kept as people realize. One of the secrets, even though we all joke around like, there's really no secrets, because the one thing that kind of throws people off and they're unaware of, they're not really secrets, because you can find Freemasonry within everything, because we build it in everything. The knowledge, and it's really not a secret. It's there.
Yeah.
Yes,
For those
it's
who have
there out in the open.
Yeah. Because they are the ones that actually put the sacred geometry symbolism in everything, so that your DNA template can resonate with it and awaken something in you to say, this means something more. And then it's up to you to seek that truth.
Exactly.
What Jesus even said,
exactly.
Probably quote it better than me, but it's about seeking truth. What I'm thinking of. He had some really beautiful phrase, and I can't remember it right off the top of my head. I kind of just went blank. About seeking truth. I don't know, but even Jesus said that, right?
Yeah, seeking.
Essentially, Jesus was a Freemason, if you will, because he knew the same knowledge.
He went to the mystery schools and he studied the, Pentateuch and the Torah, and learned about King Solomon and King David, which the Solomon builders, Hiram Abiff, the architect of Solomon's temple, that's at the root of the third degree of Freemasonry. Yes. And the Merkaba knowledge, and
that's the Star of David with Ra in the center of it. Yeah, that's the original Star of David symbol. Yeah.
And then just to show it off, 7 stars.
Right, sevens.
Which if you look at George Washington's painting, which I believe is in the House of Congress, his where he's in his Masonic garb, you will see the 7 stars just like this in that painting. And there's also a UFO up in the sky with a ladder going to it as well. Just want to throw that out there. Right. Good old Jacob's ladder. But it's those ancient wisdoms. And because we have these symbols today, it's because they've been preserved. And because certain information physically can't be put out there because it would be destroyed. Look at all the cover up in the UFO and extraterrestrial phenomena. There have been groups that have been protecting information as valuable, but protecting it and leaking it out into shows, for example, Ancient Aliens and other shows like that, leaking this information out in what they create and what they build. Some of the most influential men of the world, and I think this is why a lot of people think they're all evil, but it's not just the most influential men in the world, it's the men that have done the most good for the world. And people don't understand the difference. They see influential, but they don't see the actions. So they just, all these powerful people, they're all evil.
Right. Well, from a philosophical standpoint,
but look at their actions.
It seems like people would say, well, what gives them the right to decide how much knowledge can be released to the world, right? But also from a philosophical,
I'll tell you, there's an answer.
Not everybody can handle that knowledge, and with great knowledge and power comes great responsibility. And not everyone is up to the task of being responsible. I mean, as a human race, that is an obvious statement and always has been,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
for example, what gives, as you said, which it's not the case, but what gives them the right to hold back certain information or whatever secrets they think we got. But a big part of that is how much are you willing to listen?
Right.
You know, that's really it. It's already there. We're not holding back anything. The problem is people aren't listening. We've already put, and don't take our word for it. Read some Sumerian texts. Read your Native American cultures. You know, Masons and Native Americans get along quite fine. We meet on a square. You know, read your ancient tribes histories. Read ancient history. It's all there. Read, you know, Pythagoras. You know, Aristotle. Read Hermes. All these cats. All these philosophers. Learn as much as you can, and if you do that, you will have the secrets of Freemasonry. And it's not, I'm so open with this stuff, you know. I'm a little different. I'm cut from a different cloth, I guess you would say. But you know, I'm pretty open. Although I don't, like I said, I normally don't talk about Masonry. I definitely don't go out of my way. But you know, the whole reason I brought this up anyway, because it's a pivotal point
Of
of my life and the things that came.
right.
Yes. So with that being said, moving on, as we like to say,
you.
keep it under the table. Yes, keep it under the table. Let's hush hush about it and move on. And a big part of why I don't talk about it is because the judgment that comes along with it. Same reason why so many experiencers and abductees don't talk about it. We're going through trauma. Masons go through trauma.
And I totally understand that and completely respect that from you, but from my own mission and passion in life, to connect these bridges, to remove the division, to end the persecution and the inquisitions that we seem to consistently go through, not just in this lifetime, but all of them. Like, it's time for that.
Absolutely.
Right. And so that's why I wanted to just a little further, because it's time to end all of this division, all of it. Like, let's be done with it and move forward as a being of light that each one of us are. And we've all been through our own set of inquisitions and persecutions, but clearly light workers go through much, much greater obstacles. I'll just use the word obstacles.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. A whole nother ball game. And
so please continue with your story of your journey.
Yes. So moving forward, I got into that. At the time I was married. That was the same ex-wife that was, you know, lived with that pastor and all that. And it was strange because we moved to Delaware. I wanted to, you know, be home more because I was a professional musician, but I wasn't a typical rock star. I was in a publicly known Christian metal band. We were not out drinking and partying and hooking up with girls, never. Also, we had accountability for one another, you know, and we just looked after each other's backs. That's just how we operated. And with that being said, you know, I lost the band, I lost the church, and then shortly after, my mother and grandmother were moving to Florida, and I wanted to help them go down there. And I was just getting involved with Freemasonry, as I mentioned. And I helped them drive the U-Haul truck down to Florida, helped them unload. I was going to stay down there for a week, help them unload. And the week goes by, and I sent a couple texts, but I didn't really get a response. And I didn't know what was going on with my ex-wife at the time. And I'm down there, and a week goes by. I'm ready to come home. The house is settled. I've said my goodbyes. And she's completely ignoring me for 3 or 4 days. And then 4 days after that, after it was time for me to come back, and I need her to set up the plane ticket, pickup time, all that, get me from the airport. And I just get a text message saying, you were my first boyfriend. I don't think I ever really loved you. I think you should just
Oh,
stay
wow.
down there. And she ignored me. I lost everything I had. All I had was a
Oh my
duffel
God.
bag and my cell phone. And that's all I was left with. I never saw her again. About 5 months later, divorce papers showed up. They found all the way down in Florida. Divorce papers showed up. She emptied out the bank account, or at least cut off my card of it. And that was that, out the blue. It wasn't until about a year later that I found out, she was cheating on me while I was going to church and spending time. She was working a lot and hanging out with girls and going to clubs and, having this affair, which brings me to the next point. I was in Florida with absolutely nothing. Things were just starting to kind of get positive after losing my church, losing my band. And then at least I found, masonry. And then unfortunately, I lost my wife. So I lost the three things that I dedicated my life to wholeheartedly. The three things that were my everything. I lost it all in the same year. I was in the Florida, no money with my grandmother and mother. I didn't have my social security, my birth certificate, nothing, because she was hoarding it all. So it was really hard to find a job, which eventually I did. But it was really hard not having any papers or, other than my license. It was tough. And for 6 months, I was in Florida, and every single night, regardless of where I was in Florida, I would go out. And it was the winter months, so Orion was invisible, and I would go out every night and I would just talk to Orion and just, connect with the universe. And I kept on picking up on something telling me that you're going to go to the Middle East. And I'm arguing with them. How? I have no money. I have nothing. I don't even got clothes to be able to go to the Middle East. I have absolutely nothing. I just lost everything. And you have the audacity to tell me that you're going to open up doors for me to go to the Middle East. Essentially, that went on for about 4 months. And I was down there for a 6 month total. Right around 6 months, I was at a friend's house or something, and I come back. And my mother, she worked in the restaurant business for a long time. And a lot of the restaurants were owned by Turkish people from Turkey. And one of the people that were the managers and lived next door to us with my grandmother at the time, he lived with my grandmother, just paying rent and all that while he was working here and going to college. Turns out he's like in charge of this huge language school over in Turkey. And he messaged my mom on Facebook saying, "Hey, do you know anyone that would be interested on coming to Turkey to teach English?" And my mom told me that it was on a Friday. I said yes. We told my buddy Rafik over there, the guy that offered it, told him on Saturday, and I was on the plane Sunday. So
Wow.
to give you an idea of why did I have to think about it? I've been told it was coming for the last 4 months. I've begged. I literally said, if you open the door, I will go through it. That was the deal I had with them. I said, you open the door, I'll go through it. But right now, the door I have, it's broken and falling apart, and there needs to be a new door because one I have ain't working.
Right.
So that led me to my next part of my journey. Any questions?
So off to Turkey you went.
Off the Turkey I went,
How long were
which
you
I
there?
remained there for 2 years. 2 years.
2 years. Wow.
Didn't come back. Off the grid. The United States government had no idea where I was. And I'll get into that because I had a nice welcome home party. I'm being sarcastic.
I know.
But trust me, when the US government don't know where you are for 2 years, Believe me, they're going to ask you a lot of questions and ridiculous ones, even when you look like me. But I was over there teaching English, and it was during the time of ISIS. It was from 2013 to 2015. I was over there teaching English and just learning so much. I was in the heart of like the Hittite capital, ancient civilization that most people are completely unaware of. But I've seen their, castles and stuff in the caves, and they got mummies, and they had a treaty with Egypt. The Hittite, something really interesting everyone should look into. Turkey is like part of the cradle of civilization. The history there, the feelings you get when you were there, mind blowing.
Yeah. You actually just said a word that probably hit another nerve with some of my viewers, big types. Because again, there's that division.
Oh yeah. So here comes another sensitive topic. So I was over there, and I've always been open to things, and I started learning Islam, read the Quran. I've been in the mosque. Yes, imagine a 6'8", red bearded, blue eyes, white guy up in the mosque on Juma. Juma is Friday. It's their Sunday. Although they pray 5 times a day every day, Friday is their Christian church Sunday. It's the best way to describe it, translate that.
Holiday.
And just imagine me in there. And I'm not going to lie, I was nervous. I was shaking in. Well, I didn't have shoes on because you're in the mosque. You take your shoes off. So I can't even say I was shaking in my boots or shoes. No, I was shaking in my socks and hoping, I got to look right. I got to look left. All right, go down. But there is actually geometry and science behind the motions they do. And it's really special. And then I started to learn more about Sufism. Sufi Islam is the mysticism of Islam, and some of them, they actually worship Allah by dancing around in circles with these beautiful white like gowns. And oh man, it's very universal. I don't even like to call it Islam sometimes, because what I learned from that, and I understand completely what the Knight Templar, I know what the Knights Templar learned from the Islamic people that they were fighting against. They ended up being brothers, essentially, and they learned their mysticism and they incorporated that. And it's really powerful stuff. And a lot of it is exactly what you're teaching to all your followers and subscribers and viewers and listeners. You're teaching the exact same thing. It's no different.
Right.
It's no different.
Sufi and Buddhists alike have the same foundation.
It's beautiful. Yeah, absolutely beautiful. So, of course, I studied some other Islamic, and I mean, I read the Quran at face value as the Quran, and I practiced it. And I had a few friends that were from other places, and there was a lot of refugees coming from Syria because of ISIS. I had them eating in my living room, hearing stories that you would never hear on American news. American news lies. I trust me. I was over there. I saw the reality, which was awful, by the way. The reality, it was awful. But I see how the U.S. media pitches and narrative king and stuff, and it's just completely inaccurate about everything. Although there was some really bad stuff going on, but those things go unheard of. You only hear about what's beneficial to the U.S. military.
Right.
But very interesting. And that, I've been brainwashed. I was born and raised in America, and I was brainwashed just like every other American there was. You have no idea until you turn all American media off. Turn it off for a year, and then you'll get it. You'll get it when you get reintroduced to it all. You're like, whoa. And I wasn't crazy over their media. Although I will say this, on their news, like when they would show a suicide on the news, you saw it all. Which the first time I saw that, I was actually at a restaurant eating my chorba, which is soup. I was eating lentil soup, I was eating soup and I'm watching the news, trying to learn the language and just how's their news.
Mhm.
And I see some dude standing on top of the roof. I'm like, oh, this guy's gonna jump. This guy's gonna jump. But I was thinking like an American, they're not gonna show me. And
Right.
so I didn't stop eating because I knew I wasn't gonna see nothing. And I was literally in the middle of that food fight, and I saw,
Oh,
spaghetti hitting the and I was like, oh,
ooh,
I was like, oh man, and parents are watching the news with their little kids in the room. I'm like, but at
yeah.
the same time, it's good to keep it real because maybe then people won't do it if they see, the
Well,
reality and
right.
how awful,
I kind of actually agree with you there because I'm always talking about how video games, where they're teaching children to be military-ish, right? It causes that disconnect between what really happens to people when they die or when they get shot or
But
injured or whatever.
yeah,
So yeah, I guess that's a good point. It keeps it in real perspective.
because in the video game, you shoot it, a guy goes, he falls down just a little puddle of blood. But
Yeah,
when you know the reality of it and you see the reality of it, you're like, oh man, it does make you feel really bad. And it really, says,
yeah,
don't do it, or this will, this almost like cartoons, how they show cartoons hurting themselves and they're perfectly fine. And then a kid does it. And then kid
right,
dies from something he's seen in a cartoon,
right, exactly.
not understanding that grasp of it. So
Yeah,
it had its benefits. At the same time, it caught me off guard. And
I guarantee it.
when you're eating food in a restaurant, I'm like, why do they even have this on?
Yeah, yeah,
But they keep it real. But I learned so much, and especially the history, living within history. It was absolutely phenomenal. I've never been around history so old, and to just be surrounded by that. And I've probably never had more freedom in my life. Living in Turkey in the Middle East was the first time I ever felt like I had real freedom. I got news for you. America is not freedom no more. I had freedom, and it wasn't in this country. I thought I had freedom living in America until I went somewhere where I got to experience true freedom. People didn't understand what I was saying. I lived in a small city. Imagine having the freedom of saying anything you want. And even over there, they don't curse in their Turkish language. It's really disrespectful and people mess you up. But American curse words, they love it. The negative association to it is completely gone. So, like over there, you can say or do anything, and there's no one judging you or thinking about you a different way. And when I was over there, people didn't care about who I was, what my job was, none of that. They were
right,
just so interested in me because I was different. They didn't care about my background. They didn't care that I was a pastor. They didn't care. They just wanted to know me because of me. I, you know, I look like this. That was good enough for them. That was it. And it was such a refreshing experience to have that kind of freedom and the connections I had. I had very close people that were very high up in that society, even working secret service to the president, Recep Erdogan. The guy on his secret service actually owned my apartment. I was renting from a guy that was in, I think they call it M6, or I forget the name of whatever their name was for it. But yeah, so like I had really good connections. I never had any problems, never issues. And I literally had people, I was coming from Florida, no clothes. During the wintertime for about 2 weeks, it gets a little chilly. I had a guy give me his university jacket off of his back. I still have it today. His university jacket that he went to school 4 years to get, top notch university, gave me his university jacket so I would be warm.
what an
Like,
honor.
they know how to love one another.
Right,
It was beautiful being on the train, watching young people stand up for pregnant women and old people, and people helping the old and women around. Like, I got to see love. And after being born and raised in America, I didn't realize that. I didn't know what that was. And
Yeah.
I learned so much about love. It's beautiful. And don't get me wrong, there's a-holes all throughout the universe. There are some Turkish people that are butt heads. I don't want to try to play something out. It's not. But a
Right.
large portion of them, from my personal experience, absolutely loving, wonderful people.
Right.
And guess what? They didn't care that I wasn't Muslim. They didn't care. You couldn't tell them that I wasn't Muslim. Even when I would tell them I wasn't Muslim, they're like, but everything you're saying, you sound like a Muslim, because I understood Islam. So like, I would always, their heads would explode when they're talking. Are you Muslim? I'm like, no, but I believe blah 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 blah. And then they go, but you are Muslim. I'm like, no, I'm
Right.
not Muslim, but I believe. And they're like, you are Muslim. They couldn't. It was cute.
Yeah.
It was really
Because they couldn't
adorable.
understand that
They
it's a
couldn't understand it
universal-
because
it's a universal understanding.
we had the same
Mhm.
same core beliefs. So
Yeah.
they're like, I'm sure probably they were thinking, well, how much Muslim am I if this guy is saying he's not Muslim, but he believes everything we
You were
do?
making them question their identity.
Yeah, exactly. And but it was beautiful. And they had names for me. Akral Rafet Akral, which is my little Muslim name, I guess you would say. It was fun. It was a good time at parties. So but yeah, wonderful experience. I learned so much. I came back to the States after doing that. After you're gone for a while, you imagine things to be different. You think this country is a lot better than what it was. Little did I know that I was coming back to everything that would be 1,000 times worse. My hometown, that by that point I lived in Florida, so it was like 3 or 4 years since I saw my hometown. And I go back and it's 10 times worse. Less jobs, everything
Right.
closed down. Places that were nice neighborhoods are straight up hoods and ghettos falling apart, nothing but liquors and pizza shops everywhere. And I just came back from a awesome city in the Middle East. I was living in Samsun, Turkey, and 2 million people, but it was beautiful. I lived right on the Black Sea. I had a penthouse, top view. I would go out, look at my deck, and have the water right there. Oh, I've never had anything like it. It was
Right.
unbelievable. Every night I would go for a walk on the boardwalk, nice restaurants, clubs, museums. It was absolutely phenomenal. Not like what people think about the Middle East.
May I
Very
ask,
modern.
how were you able to live so well?
Being a teacher,
Being a teacher.
especially in the city I was, there weren't any Americans, and unfortunately in a lot of countries that don't speak English, the only way to get high test scores in universities and to get universal and global jobs is to be certified in English of some capacity.
Got ya.
So their need for English teachers, where versus in Istanbul, there would be a few Americans, but I was 10 hours from Istanbul, and I was it was a big city, but relatively small compared to that. And with that being said, there are Turkish people teaching English, but it's not the same. And to have an authentic
Right.
American English speaking person in this town where there was only 2 Americans, it was a big deal. And they were willing to pay, but although I got a lot of money in their money, but their money isn't worth nothing compared to the rest of the world.
Right.
So
You were a hot commodity there.
I was well off there.
Yeah.
I was good and balling and living a luxurious lifestyle there. But
Right.
if I took that money and I came back to America, I would have $400. The
Right.
thing is, over there, things you need to survive are cheaper. Healthcare and your home are dirt cheap. Those are things you need to survive.
Right.
Things you don't need to survive. Phones, electronics, they are through the roof. Alcohol. Do you see? I told my students, this is the difference from America to Turkey. Things you need to survive in America, you are going to pay the most for. Things you don't need, oh, you'll get that for cheap. It's
Right.
dirty. It's dirty, and it's
Yeah,
the
'cause our
wrong
government
way to be.
they hand out the cell phones left and right to keep you
Oh yeah.
But distracted, keep tabs on you, all kinds of reasons.
Healthcare.
And yeah, healthcare, basic needs
and property taxes.
Yeah.
Basic needs, food.
Right.
Food was cheap over there, but food over here, whoa, man.
Yeah, especially
except McDonald's. McDonald's was one of the most expensive restaurants in Turkey.
Well, good. That's smart.
It was wild.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah. It was like 19 Turkish lira to get a Big Mac.
Right.
But
Okay,
that was all right because I wasn't really eating that much.
Continuing on your journey. Continuing on, you came back to the States. What happened next?
Yes, I came back to the States. It was a lot cut off. Moved around a little bit. That's complex. I'm shortening everything. Try to keep it brief.
Right. When you came back.
Yeah. I forgot about that. Yep. So when I first came back, it was a very long flight. I went from my city in Turkey, Samsun, to Istanbul, from Istanbul to Qatar, Qatar International, and then from Qatar to Philadelphia International Airport. When I had no problems getting out of Turkey, when I landed in Qatar, and I'm going to tell it this way so people can really understand what was going through my mind. And obviously, I'm not racist in any sort of way. I love Middle Eastern people, but this is just a really wild story. So I'm getting ready and getting my ticket and everything ready to go on the plane on Qatar. I was there for about an hour and a half. Crazy airport, Doha airport, absolutely insane. And I'm waiting there, and this guy in Arab gown, the white everything, comes up to me. And here in America, we're preconditioned, pretty much to think, well, that's what terrorists look like. Let's be honest. That's what our media portrays. It's not true. It's not true. But I have this gentleman that looks, pretty much like that, come up to me, because in Turkey they weren't wearing those. Qatar is another playground. And he comes up to me and he's asking questions. Where were you? What were you doing? Do you have any tie with terroristic organizations and all this stuff? Asking me all these questions. And in my American brainwashed head, I was thinking, is this terrorist asking me if I'm a terrorist? Like, I'm being honest. I'm not, I don't really think like that. But like in my head, like that, I'm an American. That's exactly what I thought. I can't help it. I've been brainwashed to think like that. Doesn't mean it's right. But so he checks everything. I'm like, I was an English teacher. Like, what do you want me? How do I prove? And then, of course, when I traveled in the Middle East in my travel bag, because they would always check it, I kept the Quran on top, which in that case didn't help me. Right. Every other travel situation, it helped me. No, it helped me. I got through. It really did help when you're traveling in the Middle East. And I'll let anyone know, you put a Quran on top of your bag. Yeah, you might have U.S. government officials asking if you are a terrorist, but they're not the people you really need to worry about. You want to have a Quran on the top of your bag when you're completely alone traveling through the Middle East like I was. Trust me, you must do this. And that's exactly what I did. And any other time I never had problems, but it was backfiring on me. And then they let me get on the plane, and the plane is filled with tons of Middle Eastern people. And I come back, and there's probably, I would say, probably about 45. It's a big plane, but 45, 60 people it seemed to be. And I'm at Philadelphia International Airport. I'm excited after 2 years to see my mother and grandmother. And I get off the airplane, and we're waiting to go through the little check thing off of there. And a security police come, and they grab me before I could go through that. And I had to go in this little room. And I walk in there, and I see the guy. And I keep in mind, I'm in Philadelphia now. I'm home. I'm where I need to be. So he calls me in there, and we sit down, and he sees my tattoo.
Right.
He sees the square and compass tattoo. He goes, "Are you a Mason?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "My brother's a Mason. I have no idea why they have you in here." And he's like, and I'm telling him, I'm like, "Yeah, I was an English teacher in Turkey for 2 years." I'm like, I grew up in Pensgrove, and he, not one question was like incriminating me about a terrorist or anything. He clearly knew. And the craziest thing, out of all the 45 to 65 people that came off of that plane, I was the only white person. Okay. And race don't matter. But this is what I am going to say. I was the only one questioning about being a terrorist, which the point of this isn't racism. The point of this is, when the US government does not know where you are, they're going to throw a fit when they find out that you duped them. And luckily, because of this tattoo on my finger, it got me out of a really, really bad situation. Because I had no way to prove what I was doing. I was working under the books over there, for my company and stuff. My language school was actually ran by the mob over there. Fun fact. So I was well protected, but there's a lot of things that they couldn't find about me, and it was wild, and it was a little sad to be come home to my country. My ancestors made America. I won't get into it, but they're the founding fathers, and
Right.
it kind of hurt my feelings to, "Oh, welcome home. Are you a terrorist?" Like, who do you think I am? Like, I would never disgrace my ancestors. Like, why would I
Right.
ever hurt this country or anyone in it? Like,
With all due respect, with your connections and how you ended up there, and that you're teaching English and you're being paid by the mob, I can understand where they might,
well,
like,
they didn't know that.
are
They,
you teaching
they didn't
English to
they
the
didn't know that part.
terrorists?
Yeah. They had no idea of my money trail. They had no idea how much money I made.
Right.
They had no idea what my job was. They thought I was a terrorist, especially in the Middle East, in Qatar, which in my whole life I would never thought I would have been. And my beard wasn't this big. My beard was not this. This is 7 years of growing. It wasn't like this. I didn't look like this back then. I was a very, clean looking English teacher. I wore suits and dress shirts, and it was wild. I would
Yeah.
never thought I would be questioned as a terrorist. Yeah, but so I come back to the States. I move around a little bit. I hop all over. And then I ended up being a warehouse manager for a commercial door and frame company. That went on for about 5 years. Then my mother got sick, and I used personal vacation days to go to Florida to basically say goodbye to my dying mother. And when I got back, my job illegally fired me and got rid of me. And I ended up very similar. I sued them. I just actually got my settlement. And
Okay.
unfortunately, they made me go through a bunch of hoops and rings, and I wasn't able to be with my mother as she was passing, which has really tore me up. And my mom, the last 2 years of my mom's life was hard. There was a moment where she was in a coma for a month straight. And this is, I'm saying this because you brought it up in the beginning. My mother was in a coma month straight on life support. And, simply put, I said, this is enough. I want my mom back. I tickled her feet and she came back to life. And that wasn't the first time, and it's not the last time. And I know where you're going with this. I know you want to add to that. But I did it a few other times and I didn't know no better. I had no idea, but once I realized the connection of what was happening each time I brought my mom back, I would have another family member die within 24 hours. I'm never doing it again, and it shouldn't be done because life force takes life force, and there's only so much of it to go around. And yeah,
Well,
you save one, but who else are you taking?
actually, I'm just going to interrupt you there to disagree completely. That's not the case. That is not always the case. I don't know why that happened for you, and I'm very, very sorry that it did. But no, that is not always the case. I saved my daughter's life when she was 10 years old, brought her back to life after she flatlined 3 times. And no one else had to die as a consequence of it. There were no other losses in place.
No family members?
No,
No friends, no family members?
no one. No.
Does that have something to do with me and maybe my ability? Is it am I a defect?
I think if anything, it has something to do with what you've yet to learn. Because you're being tested very hard.
I mean, yeah.
In many areas.
It happened 3 times, and
I don't want people to be fearful of trying to bring someone back to life and think that
no.
That it comes with a cost.
Yeah.
It comes with a price that someone else's life will be taken, because that is not the case. No. I'm very, very sorry.
For me, it was, and it would be different if it just happened 1, 2. It happened 3 times, and I used to think like the same way you thought. When I was in the church, I did healings, not bringing people to life, but healings. I remember we prayed over one person that in Bible college, I told you, we did a lot of hands-on. There was this one woman every week we would go spend 6 hours. She was wheelchair bound. We would go to her house, roll her around, help her cook food and all this, a couple of us, not me alone. And it was very well known she was wheelchair bound. And we all got over her, and I'll tell you what, she walked, she stood up. Granted, afterwards, she used the cane. It wasn't 100%, but something happened, and nothing bad happened. No one, another person that was standing there didn't suddenly go paralyzed. That didn't happen. So I do want to clarify, there has been times, but for me specifically, when it comes like this person's dead and they're alive, it's ended really bad, so bad that I'm terrified to do it again. Now, not saying that that's for everyone, but for me, I'm afraid because I kept on doing it, and I didn't realize the connection until after the 3rd time, because it seemed like each time I did it, like first time it was within 24 hours, then like 14 hours. And then the last time it was like within that 6-8 hours, after it, I'm like, oh, it's getting worse.
Privately, some other time, I would like to delve deeper into that with you, and let's see what's going on there.
Strange. I don't, if it's not a common, I assume that, how many people do you hear that can actually do that? You know what I mean? So like, how was I supposed to know?
Right. And you went to Bible college, so come on, as well, or maybe better than I do, that Jesus said to all 12 of his disciples that they could do the same great works that he does. They just have to believe, right? Like we can all raise the dead. We can all heal one another and ourselves. So there's something else there that we need to look at closer.
And some things should remain dead at times. Some things shouldn't be brought back.
Right, I agree. Sometimes we need to get out of the way of our own ego of how we're going to feel if someone dies and allow them to pass as well. I agree. Yeah.
That's tough. It's a balancing act, and it's a very thin line.
It is.
And and then if you do bring someone back and they end up doing a bunch of things, that's on you. So I've been cautious, and I'm sure Jesus was too about it. But that was one of the main reasons I had the faith to try to bring my mom back, except it wasn't Jesus or anything like that, but the whole idea and concept came from that. And then to my surprise, that's why I was surprised, because that part about losing another family member every time you do that wasn't in the Bible. So what the heck is going on?
That's something in your tests, in your lessons to learn for who you're meant to be eventually.
It's something to do with me, it's not like the overall physics of it.
Kind of way. It's not like you're cursed. It's that, and yes, those were terrible things that happened. No doubt about it. I'm not discounting that, but it's part of your journey for your lessons.
Yeah.
We'll get into it more later.
It's definitely something we have to go more into it. I'm just thinking, am I possibly gaining this? Am I accidentally taking this energy from someone and transferring it?
I don't know.
You know what I mean? Am I doing it by accident? Yeah. I don't know.
Look at it deeper later. What, babe?
I want donuts.
Okay, go tell. Go there. Shut the door. Sorry.
Donuts.
Get.
I want donuts too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so that was that experience. And I only wanted to bring that up because I know you mentioned something about it, in the beginning. And and that was that situation. And long story short, my mother passed away March 9th, 2021, I think. I forget. I'm so mixed up. It's like
a year and a half.
I don't know, from 2019 to
20.
It feels like 2020 never happened.
Yeah.
I have no idea. But so in March, 2 months after my mother passed away, I found the UFO crash articles, which, after all those years of us not having evidence to validate our claims, I found those, and unfortunately she was no longer here to speak. So I kind of made it my mission to get out there and share it. It was during the same week as the UFOs from the Navy. It was the same week I found the evidence on my family's case. After 30 years, made the documentary, I shared it, had an outpour of people coming in. And like I said, my job got rid of me 2 months before my mom died. So it's the same thing. And it's a common trend in my life where I lose everything, but it don't bother me because I know what's coming every time. This ain't my first. Every time I lose everything, I only get 10 times as much more. I'm just used to it. The more pain and suffering I go through, for some reason, the greater the reward. It's to the point where, and vice versa. If something really good happens to me, something really bad is right around the corner. I've really caught this one, and I'm just weary when things are going great. I'm weary that just prepare yourself, it's right around the corner. And when things are going bad, be weary, something good's right around the corner. It's like my life just can't be balanced. Well, it has to be lose everything, get everything. Why can't I just be a happy medium?
I think that's why we met, Robert, because I'm going to help you to find that balance and be able to shed that fear, that other shoe dropping. Because I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And
Totally.
it's not me, it's the universe. And there's lessons to being taught, but like I feel like with them, they have to know I get it by now. Look at how calm I react to them every time. I know what they're doing to me. So like if the student is aware of the answer on the test, why test them anyway? That's what I'm getting at. Like, come on.
Yeah.
But it's all growth. I know the real.
Sometimes we need to ask ourselves, is the student the one giving the test?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, could be. But it's a growth.
I think
it's a practice.
Yeah. I honestly,
there's lessons to be learned.
I see you years from now, still continuing your journey, still growing, but being so strong in really who you are, really standing in your power and your understanding of who you are, and being a really beautiful light for this world. I do.
How many years is this?
Oh,
I don't think I got much more time.
For several years, I see you being a really strong, beautiful light for this world. Yeah. I don't think you have many more struggles.
I've always been in such a rush. I don't think I have much more time. My whole life, even when I was young, I just was always under this impression. Honestly, I thought I would already be gone now. And I just get this overwhelming feeling that I'm not going to be around forever. And I know a lot of people say don't think that way, but I just roll with it because it really makes me hustle and it really helps drive me to do what I need to do. Instead of saying, well, I'm going to live till 90 years old. And when you look at my mother and her father's ages of when they died, it's something I have to keep in mind. And, what legacy do I want to leave behind? How do I want to help people? What do I want to do? And it drives me. And I think that's why I kind of have an old soul. My mom died at 51 and her father, the guy I'm named after, died at 40 years old.
Okay.
So her dad died at 40.
And while I appreciate your dedication to the hustle of getting things done, I also feel like you're limiting yourself. You're putting limits on.
Yeah.
So maybe I can help you to learn to remove limits.
Yep. I mean, at the same time, if I end up living 80 years old, cool beans.
Yeah.
But I don't want to bank on it. And there's no telling. You and I might go tomorrow, or we might go 20 years from now, or 60 years now, or maybe we get technology that prolongs our lives and we go another 200 years. That would be nice.
The power and ability of the soul, and we don't have to go until we're just ready. And maybe that's how it always worked anyway.
And then at the same time, understanding there's no such thing as death. Maybe I'm just overly excited for the transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Get off this rock, maybe that's my excitement leaking over as a thought of I'm not going to be around here for a long time, probably because I don't want to be.
Right. Be a choice. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go home. I mean, not on my timing, universe timing. I don't want anyone getting the wrong idea. I'm not that impatient. I can wait until the time comes, but when it does, I'm looking forward to it.
Right.
Just want to go back home, wherever that is.
I used to say that when I was 2 and 3 years old. I would stare at the sky and say, I want to go back home. And my mom would be like, you want to go to heaven? And I'm like, heaven ain't my home. That's not, no, not like that. I just want to go home, like wherever that is up there in that light. Yeah, I want to go home.
And And sometimes the only means, if not an astral, you can go places astrally, but sometimes the only way to actually get back there is through that transformation. So sometimes it's the only ticket for us to actually be able to go to another part of the galaxy for free.
Right.
I don't have the technology and the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The easiest way.
Right.
Uh,
So what do you
and what else?
what do you actually feel like your mission in life is? What purpose do you hope to serve for humanity?
Well,
And that can be
there's a
multi-layered.
few. Yeah, it's been pretty much the same thing my entire life, as you kind of heard through bits and pieces of my story. It's been to love and help humanity evolve. Um, and that's a very broad word, evolve, meaning that there are a lot of different tools and ways that you can help people raise their consciousness and their vibration. And it's not a one trick pony. There's not one way. It can be as something as simple as helping someone carry their groceries to their car. That's it. That's what it's all about. And luckily my mother instilled that in me. Yeah. And my mother instilled that in me. And another goal is I want to make sure no one goes through, what my mother went through being a contactee, and, the ridicule, rejection, on top of having, traumatic experiences, or experiences that are really hard to understand and take years to understand, and you can't talk to anyone about it. I've really made it a mission to help people get their stories out there and be able to share freely without the ridicule, without, like what the media does, all the allegedly, all those key words of saying, we don't agree with them. And just in case you believe them, we want you to know we're not associated with them. All
Yeah.
those words.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Censorship
I'm
free
giving
platform.
everyone the benefit of the doubt.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Censor free. That's a big help. But yeah, that's been my mission of what I'm doing, and I'm doing a lot of interviews. I have a series on YouTube called "We Are the Disclosure," where I'm doing just that, and eventually I'm going to have Kelly on there as well for everyone that's watching. So stay tuned. But
Yeah.
yeah, so many people have had experiences. I just want to share it in hopes that someone else will be able to relate or understand where that person is coming from, so they won't be alone in the universe with this phenomenon. Because the truth is, none of us are alone in any aspect or situation or experience, not just extraterrestrial, UFO, paranormal, spiritual. All experiences, you are not alone.
That's right. Yeah. And I honor you and thank you for giving people a voice, giving them a platform to share their voice and share their journey and their experiences, because it is, especially in the UFO field, it's like a dirty little secret you have to keep. You can't just freely tell your family or your parents or your spouse or your siblings or your friends or anyone, and for God's sakes, if you share it with a counselor or a therapist, I mean, they're not going to believe you. They're going to think you crazy and want to put you on medication, if anything, So it's really,
Exactly.
it's huge for you to give them a platform to where they can feel that they're not alone and feel empowered by their knowledge, because this knowledge needs to be shared. People need to become more aware of just how frequently this actually happens to people, right? I mean, we keep that so quiet.
Absolutely.
That we don't realize. I mean, your neighbors getting taken, or when they were children, they were taken, but they can't talk about it. So you don't really even know your neighbors anymore. This disconnect is so irritating to me. Oh, and so sad. So I honor you and respect you
Everyone's,
greatly for what you're doing.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, unfortunately, everyone's too worried about what people think about them. That's a big part. It's not their fault, preconditioning. And,
Yeah,
I want to thank you, Kelly, because, I'm out here on the front lines dealing with this, but that's where like you come in, where you're helping people like me and, looking more within, the spiritual side of it, and, trying to help give me the tools by what we're doing with the class and everything, helping me with, protecting my higher self and sharpening the tools that are within me, but they need a good sharpen because it's hard to pour out your cup when your cup is empty. And I'm constantly pouring my cup, constantly dumping it all out on lives, interviews, all that, answering people's questions, listening to experiences. And it's nice to have people like you that come along and you refill that cup a little bit, give me some juice. It doesn't happen too often, and I appreciate it. And that's why I'm doing the classes with you and all that, because that's why I'm looking forward to it. I need it. It's exhausting, and in the best way possible. If you love your job, you'll never complain about it. So
absolutely.
that it's kind of one of those situations.
And you're right. We all
It's
need
busy, a lot of work, but I love it.
yeah. And we do all need to have a way to refill and keep our cup full. And my true mission in life is to teach people how to step back into their true power, because none of us really knew this whole lifetime. We've never known who we really are. And if I can give you that back and help you to really understand who you are, then you automatically love yourself more. You automatically respect yourself more, and you automatically want to go forth and help people more. So my true passion is to just give us all back our true freedom, right? You spoke of America not really being as free as we are led to believe. And that's true in so many different senses of that word. We as humans are not as free as we're led to believe. If we knew who we are, if we really knew who we are, we would be completely free, and nothing could stop us. Nothing.
Mhm.
So
We
I
would become bright shining stars, supernovas exploding all over the place.
That's right. That's right. And
It would be bad news.
yeah, it really will be. It really will be, like, for the bad guys. But so much fun for us and so beautiful for our future. And that's where we have a common goal. We want to see our future thrive. We want to see humanity thrive. We want to see the division ended and the bridges to mending and healing and unifying everybody again. And I mean this with my entire soul when I
Also,
say that it's completely an honor to know you.
thank you. That's high words. High words for a little boy like me. One of things that is important too, and I hope to see along with what you're saying, is the rise of consciousness and spirituality along with AI and technology.
Right.
I feel like we're skimping out. We're getting all the AI and all the technology, but the consciousness and the spirituality isn't going at the rate of the AI and technology. And in order for both of them to excel appropriately, they need to be level. And I hope eventually to be maybe do a little bit more on that. Think about the education system isn't teaching people how to use their internet. They're just telling them what to search.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think there needs to be more of a.
I was just going to say we need to take back control of the AI technology instead of allowing it to try to gain control of us. Yeah.
Yeah, use it as a tool and actually use it coupled with our spirituality and consciousness and it can be extremely useful. But
Yes.
if you have someone cut off from consciousness and moral, integrity, and they're messing around with AI and technologies, it's all about who's using it. It'll be bad. Then it'll be like Judgment Day Terminator. But
Right.
if we're all consciously aware, even with modern day internet, we need to be teaching children that, how to morally and spiritually use AI, because there's a lot of messed up
Yes.
stuff, but we're not teaching children. We're just putting parental blocks on that. That's not explaining to the child. That's just not allowing them to do it. Therefore, they don't understand why not to look those things up. Why not to do that? So
Right. And
we
we
need to
need,
go hand in hand.
yeah, and we need to be teaching that this technology is a blessing. This is an amazing gift for humanity. We can reach across the world and talk to people in real time. I mean, I wouldn't know a
Yeah.
guy from New Jersey,
You,
and you wouldn't know a girl from Indiana if it wasn't for this beautiful technology, right? So we need to be taught to appreciate
exactly.
and be thankful for it and be respectful of it and use it as a tool for humanity instead of a tool against humanity. Yeah.
Exactly. For example, you can go on YouTube and learn how to build a house. All right.
Yes.
Now, what do you do with that information? Do you go to Africa and build houses for, villages and tribes and things like that?
Right.
This is the kind of things we need to be teaching. Or do you use YouTube to shake your butt and do dance videos that benefit really no one or nothing? And, or making fun of people, how are you going to use it? And a lot
Yeah.
of people, you've heard them, AI is evil, technology is evil. No, we're the ones that do the evil things. It's just a tool. It's just a tool. So
Right.
yeah, absolutely. And hopefully, eventually, I'm sure people are aware of it. If we're aware of the problem, other people are. And hopefully the education system will, figure out some way. I doubt it. I don't have much faith in them. But in the future, we might have an entire new healthcare system, entire new school system. I think all the old hospitals, doctors, medical, pharmaceutical companies, universities, I think they all need to be shut down and start anew. Just
I
start
agree.
fresh.
I agree. And I think that's what'll happen. I really think that that's what our future looks like. Revamping education, revamping society as a whole to where we're more connected and, unified rather than division in good ways. Not like all
Absolutely.
lumped in a pile and created socialism, but in a good way. Right?
Yeah, not robots,
Yeah.
but in a good way. Like, hey, you're different, but I understand what we have in common. That
Right.
kind of way.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
We're still different, but we just accept each other for our differences. That's a beautiful world.
Yes, it is.
For sure.
Was there
Good to
any
dream.
Is there anything else that you wanted to share about your journey? Because I kind of interrupted you and we went totally off topic. So I'll just double back for a minute if you want to. I know we've been going kind of a long time and you're a busy man. So
There's been so much, and keep in mind, I really kept this more towards my spiritual journey. And a big part of my spiritual journey that I kind of left out was that light being I saw in 2012. And that would have been a whole hour and a half conversation right there. There has been a lot of other things and experiences that, I had and things like that. But for the most part, to keep things simple, that's it. We can say that's it, but it's not. But for sake of time and I think I covered the most important parts. Generally, anytime I'm asked to talk, it's all about, aliens and UFOs. Not too many people ask for like a full detail of like your life and your spirituality and your connection. And just to mention, when I was in the Middle East, the amount of information I learned about Islam, and when I was a pastor and went to Bible college, the amount of information I learned about the Bible, you know, I could do an entire,
Yeah.
six,
And
how
actually,
entire day,
yeah, actually, I would love to do more shows with you so that we can talk a little bit more about universal worldwide religions and how at their core they all kind of have that same message. Yeah,
Yes.
because
There,
that
I
will
say
help
it
to
all the time.
unify us as
Love
well.
and light can be found.
Mhm.
Love and light can be found in anything if you look hard enough. And that's why I have to say with like religions in general. Not saying they're right or wrong or anything like that, but there's so much valuable information. And like, for example, the Bible, like we could spend hours just talking about the frequencies and technologies in there, and then spend an hour talking about the different beings in there, and then the connections with all the other religions as well. It's absolutely insane how many similarities and connections all of these religions and books and ancient scripts have in common. It's ridiculous.
Agreed. And I'm just smiling really big because as you were talking, like a little orb leaped out of your beard, like we were talking about the other day. So I can't wait. I can't wait to watch the replay.
I'm really small right now. Normally when I'm on big screen, like doing a live, I see them floating and stuff like that, but I can't see anything right now. I'm so little.
See you side by
Probably
side with me.
every now and then there is dust.
Are you not side by side with me on your screen?
No.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Am I supposed to be?
You are on mine. That's how the video will show.
Oh, that's weird. On mine up here, I'm just in a little tiny square box.
Yeah. Huh. Well, that is weird.
I don't want to touch it now because I'll
You'll mess
pick
something
myself out.
up.
Yeah, I will.
All right. You'll see it on the
I
playback.
don't know how to move it.
Right out of your beard. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Never know what you're gonna get out of there. The one time I had one like shoot up from Oregon or whatever and just went right up like that. It was pretty wild.
Yeah.
But yeah, so not too much about me, just yeah, that's it.
That's it.
I'm so used to talking about aliens and UFOs. It's like there's so much more to my life, but it's just too much to get into. And I think I really covered a lot of the basics of my life, but it's a wild story and a lot of complex and a lot of different. I had a lot of stepdads. I had a lot of different stepdads, which I had a lot of fathers. I had many fathers, and each father taught me so much information and my life experiences. Some kids only have one dad. Well, I had like 5 or 6. So, that's 5 or 6 times the amount of, dad information coming. And it's really nice to have that many dads growing up because you really get to learn different things from each of them, both good and bad. And it was an experience, no doubt about it.
Enlightening way of looking at your life, because so many other people could say, I had so many stepdads and that was negative, or my mother had to be my dad and my mom sometimes, so we had to physically have altercations, and that was a terrible, you know what I mean? Like they could really put it into that negative perspective, and you don't choose to. And I think that's a really beautiful thing to show people.
Nope.
And that's really why I wanted to do this show with you today, because I want people to see who Robert is. I want them to know the Robert that I'm learning to know, and see that there is a lot of beauty in your light and your choices in how because it's a choice, right? It's a choice to look at life that way. And I want them to see that beauty,
Absolutely.
that choice. It's freeing
And
to have that perception of your life. So beautiful. I applaud.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm a master of, Kelly. I'm a master at that. I am master at taking negative and turning it into positive, because my life, I've only been handed negative, you
Right.
know, and I had to. It was a means of survival. And if I don't really want to say exactly who or what, but like my all right, my trying to think. I the reason I exist is from a really negative situation, you know. Not me per se, although, you know, my mother was
Her
in a bunch
experiences.
of different programs, but going back before that, okay? So technically, you know, my G mom, and I'll say that, you know, she was raped, and essentially that's how my mother was born, out of rape. So like, you know, and I just found this recently in the past year, and it just goes to show that no matter who you are, how you came into this world, what extraterrestrials dropped you off, or who your parents are,
Yeah.
none of that matters. You make your own path and start to carve it out. And it's cheesy, but when life hands you lemons, make
Yeah.
lemonade. And I have a big lemonade stand
Yeah.
and a whole
Yeah.
lot of lemons.
Yeah. And that's
Problem is, I
I
can't
just-
crush the lemons fast enough.
right, right. I get that. But you deserve your props for always having that, always choosing that option, right? You deserve your props for that, because you're right. There are blessings in anything. You can find a blessing in any damn thing you go through. I don't care what it is. And I trust me, I can say that because I've been through my own truckload of lemons, right? Um,
Yep.
there are blessings. And I actually have a grandson that is the product of a rape, who's a very beautiful little soul. So, you know, there are
I
many,
remember you telling me about that. I remember.
many, many blessings can come from terrible events. And
Exactly.
I'm sorry that your grandmother had to go through that, but I'm also very grateful that that experience resulted in your mother and then you, because look where we are in the world now, and look how much impact you're making on the people within your 6 degrees and how much help you're doing for them. And so what a beautiful triple blessing.
That's what it's all about. And that's how it goes. And it's almost like that old expression, one man's trash is another man's treasure. You can find beauty in anything. It
Yes.
just all depends on perspective, right?
Yes,
Absolutely. And one thing for sure, we're all gonna have lemons thrown at us. That's one thing I can promise everyone.
Yeah.
We're all gonna go through it. And like I said, I really didn't have if I ever gave in to the suffering, which I haven't really got into it, if I ever really gave in to everything, I don't even want to I don't even want to talk about it,
Right.
because
Don't even
I don't
entertain
even
it.
want to imagine. I don't even want to entertain the idea of where or what or who or if I would even be.
Right.
It's terrifying. So it's a means of survival for me to just keep, no matter, especially like recently with what I'm doing and having, you know, content taken down and my Facebook deleted and banned, and
Yes.
videos getting taken down, all this, it's, you know, it's all training for that. All right, yeah, you can delete my Facebook. Now I'm going to make a series on YouTube and blow that. It's,
Right.
you got to be like that to keep surviving. Otherwise, you're just going to give up. And please, everyone, don't give up. Just keep making lemonade. That's it.
That's right.
That should be the name of this one. Just keep making lemonade.
Keep making lemonade.
People watch it. Has nothing to do with lemonade.
Yeah.
They won't understand it. They're like, I watched a 2.5 hour video and I didn't learn anything about lemonade at all.
Till the very end. If they stuck with
I thought this was a Beyonce song.
Right. I kept thinking of that song.
And they stuck to it.
And I get back up again as you were talking.
Yeah. Chumbawamba.
Yeah.
Chumbawamba. I get knocked out, but I get up again. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just like
But
that.
yeah, so that's my little life in a nutshell. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that really is, I guess, the main point of the story. I started off with a speech, impediment. I also had to stay after school with English teachers, just like what I did with the math teacher. I did that with English teachers.
Right.
Her name was Mrs. Davis, and she was actually one of the least favorite teachers in the school. Everyone hated her. I loved her because anyone that was willing, that was willing to take time after school, after they're done their job, to sit there and help me, because they recognized that I was smart, but I had a severe, some sort of blockage or issue. And I think they would be really, really proud of the person I became. I do have my own math problem now. I don't share that publicly, but I have a math equation. And, I was overseas teaching a Cambridge curriculum, teaching English and all this. And it was awesome. A great time. Wonderful. And you can overcome anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was all to prepare me, all of it. So, and I'm not done. The test ain't over. And it's not over until we transform into our next, whatever that next is.
That's right.
For sure.
Yeah. Well said.
A lot of work. We got a lot of work.
Yes, we do. We have a lot.
I'm ready to retire.
And I don't know. I think you're up for the task. I know I am. I'm ready. I feel like we're really just now gearing up in a lot of ways, even though it's been a long, arduous road. I think this is the time.
I've been at it for a while.
Getting fun and exciting.
I'm already exhausted. I haven't even been at it that long, but I mean, I have been in other areas, but like, oh boy, sometimes I'm a little too old. Everyone tells me, you have an old soul, you have an old soul. I'm like, oh, a little too old for only being 34 years old. I feel like I'm 160 in my head. I'm over it.
Need to sing you
but yeah,
man. Walking cane.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, Robert.
Yep.
Well, it was great having you on. I appreciate you so much. I honor you and respect you so much. I am sure that everyone's just going to love listening to this interview, this show, because you have so much wisdom. And I know you just sit there and you look at me like I do, because I don't think you believe it. I don't think you really understand just how powerful your light is. And that's what I wanted to show my viewers, that you have a lot of light, and light is really powerful, and we can overcome all of these crazy, horrendous obstacles that are thrown in our way, because all of them are really just to try to keep us from shining our light. And look how strong you are. Look how far you've come and how much you've overcome. I think you're a real inspiration to the world, and you don't even know it yet. That's my opinion.
That's absolutely fine, and thank you so much. Humility is something I've always really worked on. Some of my ancestors weren't as humble. It's important to me to stay like that and to remain like that. I'm aware of more than I put out there, but I try really hard not to like focus on those things, and I just want to be relatable, and I want to be a people's people.
Yeah.
And I just, one way you do that is by staying humble. No
Okay.
one likes a show off. I know how it feels to be left out of the loop, left out of the circle. And I just try to stay as humble as I can, because arrogance and ego can destroy someone and make them go mad. And I got to be careful, very careful. Do I am aware that, you know, my story is very uplifting and encouraging, and it sounds like a movie. It's honestly, it doesn't even sound believable, you know, when you really hear it as a whole. But you know, that's why I work so hard to just, you know, take a breath. And when you're saying these things, I do look like, you know, like I don't believe you. And it's funny, when I went to Bible college, this is the last one and we'll end it on this. When I went to Bible college, when I first got there, I was really, really hard on myself. I would always put myself down. And when I was in college, one of my instructors, you know, peers, one day it's kind of started off as a joke. We were on a bus and we were going to work somewhere, and she's like, I want you to name 5 positive things about yourself. And I had nothing to say, but being a smart ass or whatever, I said, I like my socks, I like my underwear, I like my guitar, I like my little Hyundai accent, and I like food. And she goes, none of those things are about yourself, you know. And I was being, you know, I thought it was stupid. I didn't have time for that. I was just like, leave me alone, let me be humble. But she kept going at it, and eventually, you know, she had me saying positive things about myself. But it was one thing that people, even in college, the same thing you said, they were saying to me. And I think oftentimes with them, they were confusing my humility with like depression and beating myself up. And it's a fine line. There's a
It is.
point of like you're putting yourself down in a negative way, and then there is humble. I was having a hard time finding that balance in that. And same thing, even when I was a professional rock star, kids would come up to me, oh my. I'm like, yo, what's up, man? I would give them a big hug, pick them up off the ground. Like, what's going on? Like, you're my favorite singer. You're my favorite person, my guy. You know, it's been instilled in me, even when I was a rock star and I could have had the biggest head ever. The reason people love me was I wasn't like that. And you
Right.
know, my one of my ancestors specifically was known for being a people's person. I'm not going to say who he is, it's not important because it don't matter. But he was a people of the people. And you know, you can even find him on some of our money. And with that being said, you know, it's, I read his diaries. It's really important for, he struggled with humility but worked on it really, really hard. And I want to be a people's people. Like,
Yeah.
that's why I want to be. And you don't get there by having a big head, but at the same time, you
True.
should love yourself, respect yourself, and realize the light you have within you. And you're absolutely right. I do try to cover it up sometimes.
You do. And it's okay to be proud without having ego. You know, we need healthy
Mhm.
pride
Yep.
in what we do. We need to feel good about what we do, right? So it's okay.
Yep.
It's okay.
And I'm a Leo too. I'm a Leo. So, like, you know, with ego and believing in myself, if it goes too much, you're going to have a pulsar, you know, a rift in space. This
I know.
sun is going to implode on itself and
You,
suck the whole universe with it. So Leos must be humble and
yes, you
lay
are,
down the ego, especially Leos.
hands down, you're the most humble Leo I have ever met in my life. Hands down.
It's not easy.
It's
It's
not.
not easy. It's
No.
really, really hard.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm not kidding. I've really worked hard at being humble, and I don't even like talking about it because it just seems like so artificial and all that.
It seems
But
odd.
like it's insane.
Yeah.
I put a lot of time, and the fact that I am a Leo, it's a lot
Yeah.
of time.
Shows that you did your work. Yeah. Well done, sir. Well done. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kelly.
Bye-bye.